Okay, when we look at multiplying integers right now, there's some rules that can be followed. And what we're going to do is in this session, we're going to take a look at some of these rules. In order to do that, the first thing I want you to do is I want you to fill out this multiplication chart. All right? And so basically look at negative 5 times 5 is positive 25, then negative 5 times negative 4, positive 20, positive 15, positive 10, positive 5. We know that because negative times a negative equals positive. Then we have 0. Then we have negative 5 times positive. Even though there's not a plus sign, this is positive 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have positive 5, or sorry, negative 5, negative 10, negative 15, negative 20, negative 25. So take time out right now to just fill in this entire chart, and then we'll come back to talking about what are some rules that we can gather based on looking at this chart. Okay, now that you had a chance to fill it out, it should look something like this. All right. And what we're going to start to look at is we're going to start to look at patterns in this chart. And the first pattern that we see is if you multiply any number by 0, all right, you get 0 as your answer. And that's the first rule, zero property. Just like when we deal with regular numbers, 3 times 0 equals 0, and 0 times 3 equals 0. When we turn that into integers and we say negative 3 times 0, that also equals 0. And 0 times negative 3 equals 0. So the same rules apply for multiplying just rational numbers as opposed to, or natural numbers as opposed to multiplying integers, is anything by 0 equals 0. Then we look by multiplying by 1. If we go back up to the chart here, anything multiplied by 1 is that same number, but you pay attention to the integers. Okay, negative times a negative equals a positive. So, but the answer is the same. It's just depending on whether you put a negative down. So, so it looks like this. If we go 4 times 1 equals 1, or equals 4, and 1 times 4 equals 4, then if we have a negative 4 times 1 equals negative 4, and if we have a negative 1 times negative 4, it's going to equal positive 4. That's the multiplicative identity. Then we have the commutative property. Well, the commutative property of multiplication simply states that if you have 3 times 4 equals 12, the commutative property says if you write it this way, 4 times 3, it also equals 12. And the same thing applies. If we have a negative 3 times 4, that equals negative 12. And if we have 4 times negative 3, it equals negative 12. Right? Commutative property says it doesn't matter which way you write the question. All right? The answer is going to be the same. The distributive property of multiplication. If we have a question like, let's say we take a question like 15 times 30. All right, the 15, according to the distributive property, simply says the 15 is the same as saying 10 plus 5. Okay, that equals 15. So if we distribute that through this multiplication question, we can simply say 10 times 30 plus 10 plus 5 times 30. And we can do the math there. 10 times 30 is 300, plus 5 times 30 is 150. So our answer is 450. That's the distributive property. When we do that with integers, and let's even go a little bit more complicated. If we say let's go negative 15 times positive 25, all right? Then we can easily say here, I'm going to change the color so you can see it, negative 15, or 15 is the same as saying 10, negative 10 plus negative 5, all right? And positive 25 here is the same as saying positive 20 plus positive 5. Now if we take that, we're going to distribute this throughout. And a question, we're going to say, we'll start with this. We'll go negative 10 times positive 20 plus negative 10 times positive 5. So that's saying negative 15 times 25. Plus, or that's, well, getting started. Now we got to do the negative 5 times positive 20. I'm running out of room here. Just move this over. Plus negative 5 times positive 5. So now we've taken negative 15 times positive 25. We've used the distributive property to just distribute everything out. And we go negative 10 times positive 20 is negative 200. Plus negative 10 times positive 5 is negative 50. Plus negative 5 times positive 20 is negative 100. Our answer is obviously going to be negative. Plus negative 5 times positive 5 is negative 25. So if we add all of these together, we get negative 375. And so according to the distributive property, negative 15 times positive 25 equals negative 375. And that's how you do, those are the rules around multiplying integers. So we have multiplying by 0, multiplying by 1, commutative property, and distributive property. And you're going to be expected to use those in the following assignments. So remember, you can choose to do Earth's orbit, all right? You can choose Earth's orbit if you don't want too much of a challenge, impulse speed if you want a little bit more of a challenge, and warp speed if you want the greatest challenge. And also on my webpage are little helpful hints for questions 6 and 7 anyway. All right?